the role of the multilateral network of institutions, and how can we help this new reality, this new world, be developed in a manner which is fair and supports the most vulnerable?
No, thank you very much, and it's such a great pleasure to be with Your Excellencies, my sister Kristalina here. I think what this panel just shows you is that if we're going to solve the problems we face today, we need great political support for the reforms that are going to be needed. Kristalina was talking a lot about those reforms. We also need financial institutions, and we need the global financial architecture to work much better, all the way from the IMF, dealing with global macro and fiscal stability, but the multilateral development banks that have the knowledge, the skills, the experience, and the instruments to drive things of investment in water, sanitation, health, education, agriculture, energy, and all of that. So how we work as a system becomes very, very important. But I'll make 3 points, and I have a session I have to stop myself out of time, but I just want to make 3 sets of points. One is that in the whole issue of the debt treatment and the debt resolution, you know, sometimes I feel it's like a patient that goes to a doctor, and the doctor keeps saying, come back tomorrow, keep making it more complicated. And so by the time the patient eventually are supposed to be treated, the patient is dead. And so that it becomes almost like a post-mortem kind of a thing. So if you take the case of Africa, like in the 90s, when it was such a protracted process, it was not transparent, and it didn't really, we had what you call a lost Africa decade in that period. Now, listening to the heads of state today, and also from Sri Lanka, and the common framework that we are talking about, it's a great thing to have the common framework, and we all support that common framework. But again, Chad is the only one that's been done, and Kristalina was talking about the one for Zambia and so on. But let's face the fact, it's way too slow. And it treats only a small number of countries, few countries. We need to have it at scale. We have a situation where we have African countries, almost 21 countries at high risk of distress or in debt distress. So we do have to make it work faster, work at scale. Very, very important. Now, Kristalina mentioned a point what I thought very important is the multiplicity of the actors, the creditors that we have today. You know, like in 2000, Africa's debt, 52% of it was held by the bilateral creditors. Today it's 25%. In 2000, we only had maybe 17% of the total debt held by the commercial creditors. Today, it's 43%. So that landscape has changed tremendously. So the amount of people you have to have around the table, to reach agreements is getting more complicated. But even, Kristalina, even among the bilaterals, you have the Paris Club bilaterals, you have the non-Paris Club bilaterals, and how to actually reach convergence, it's always an issue. So I think we do need to have a more coordinated approach. I commend all the efforts going into in the G20 common framework and your support for that. But I do think we need to make sure that we improve the speed at which this gets done. The other point I want to make is sometimes President of Chad was talking about the issue which has to do, in my view, with the natural resource-backed loans. I am not a fan of natural resource-backed loans at all in Africa because they are not transparent. In most cases, there's a lot of corruption, and it makes the debt negotiation in terms of treatment very, very complicated for countries. We have about almost $60 billion of debt that is backed by oil, by gas, by metals, and blue economy. I think we should end all types of natural resource-backed loans. They're not in the interest of those countries. So we should not do anything like that. Then the other thing I want to say, just to close, because we have little time, is to just applaud my sister, Kristalina, because let's not forget when Kristalina, Secretary Yellen, made the big push, we were facing the dark alley with COVID. And that big push of SDR reallocation was a massive game changer. So that was $650 billion. Africa got $33 billion, which helped many African countries, no doubt, to deal with fiscal challenges that they were facing. I think what we are now talking about is we have several more challenges. We have COVID. It's like when it rains, it just pours, right? We have COVID. We have climate. Now we have also the conflict issues, rising inflation, debt, and all of this. So therefore, we need more resources than ever before. We heard from Secretary General this morning about that. So the proposal that we have is actually complementary to what my sister Kristalina is doing. I want to thank you, Kristalina, for both your leadership on the PRGT and also the PRST, but also in the conversation we're having with you on how we might be able to have access to the SDRs. And why is this very important for the MDBs? First is that the MDBs are leveraging machines. They can leverage the SDRs 3 to 4 to 5 times. So that's leverage is very, very important to have. The second challenge that we've been having, Kristalina and I have talked about this, and she's helped us a lot, is how do we make sure that even if we get that, it satisfies the reserve asset quality issue, which is a technical issue. And I want to thank the staff at the IMF for really helping us on this. So we've been working together with the Inter-American Development Bank on this framework. And what that framework essentially does is address the issue of reserve asset quality, but also the liquidity issue, but also the credit quality issue for the SDRs. So what we've done, or proposed, let me say, and we've discussed with IMF, is to create a liquidity facility, a liquidity support agreement in which those that give SDRs will put in 25% of their SDRs that. And if they face balance of payment issues, then they can get some of it to be able to deal with that. And in most cases, anyway, all the countries we are going to be dealing with are not likely going to have balance of payment issues. Now, we ran into another challenge, which is we wanted more support from Europe. And of course, the European Central Bank has its restriction in terms of monetary policy outside of the EU. So what we think this model does is it also sets up a liquidity guarantee facility that if that pot is not able to pay back for those that are asking for the SDRs, some other donors actually just simply guarantee a standby guarantee that can be called that will meet all the allocation that is needed. So we've been talking to IMF. IMF has been extremely supportive of us in this. Your staff have done a fantastic job on this. We continue to work on it. I just want to make this point. Today, thanks to SDRs, if we were to get, for example, $200 billion, just think of it, allocation to MDBs, that could easily become $1 trillion because of the leveraging factor that we have as a hybrid capital to use that to be able to do that. That's the key. And I've always joked with my sister, Kristalina, about the SDR, that it's called special drawing rights. But if we are able to have hybrid capital and use it and advance Kristalina, all the things that you and I care about, we all care about, health, education, and so on. Maybe we might consider even changing the name of that SDR to supporting development revitalization. It's a different way of SDR, but it works also for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.